Monday. I'm Richard Gibney with Ballroom Journey, and we are part of the programming at the Middletown Arts Center. So in parts 1 and 2, we talked about using the foot, articulating the foot, toe, ball, instep, heel, knee, and use of the hip on the diagonal on either side. The second part, or the third part now, we're going to start talking about your rib cage. So if we do our rib isolation from side to side, right, you can reach out if you want to be more compact and just focusing on the ribs. You can also take the rib forward and concave, forward and concave, right? So that's the options for warming up. The other part I'd like to introduce is the use of the hips, or the ribs rather, on the diagonal. So again, just like the hip action where we talk about the clock and we hit the diagonal pieces, same thing here with your rib. So instead of taking both ribs forward, I take just one side on the diagonal and the other side on the diagonal. And we'll get into more of this as we progress to next week, parts 4, 5, and 6. But for now, if you can think of dancing your rib cage diagonal, 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 versus just side to side, versus just forward and back. This makes you a bit more dynamic. It creates more of a slinkier action versus just one-dimensional side to side. Okay, so here's how I put this together. As I take my starting position, which we mentioned in part 2, pull my hands a little bit here, I have the weight on one foot. I now have the hip pulled back and the one hip forward. And before I go to step, I'm going to start to dance my body over the diagonal, preparing to move sideways. So I'm not leaning, I'm trying to engage the rib cage to dance the direction that I want to go. And this will also increase the amount of hip action. So versus just starting sideways, like we did the previous part 2, part 3, we're trying to dance the rib cage more. So if I go sideways, I have a feeling of dancing my rib cage, and then I go everything else from part 1 and 2. So it's part 3 first, rib, then toe, heel, knee, diagonal hip, pull it back, and as I pull it back and I close my foot, the other rib cage comes up on the diagonal, not just sideways, but the diagonal, and repeat the same action. Toe, ball, instep, heel, knee, hip. As I flip the hip, I flip the rib cage, again to diagonal. So I have toe, ball, instep, heel, knee, hip, flip the rib, close the feet, dance my leg action, dance the rib. Now the other direction, start off, my rib is on the diagonal, and I dance my leg action. Boom, as I change the rib cage, and as I change the hip, I change the rib cage. Boom, and switch, and switch. So this is part 3, and you can watch this a few times to pick up all the subtleties of it all. This is where it gets a bit challenging. You should not get this on your first try. If you did, that's excellent, but it should take some practice, especially to coordinate the movement with the ribs and the hip and the feet. One thing I can try and show you is, as a tip, is that when I'm dancing, I try and create a diagonal feeling from my shoulder to the opposite hip to the foot that's going to move. So there's a diagonal line this way and a diagonal line from here down to the foot. So I try to keep one side diagonal, and as I switch, I create the other way, shoulder pulling away from the hip, and then the hip to the foot. So it kind of forms like a V shape. And hopefully that's translating well. Okay, so you have all three parts. Good luck. I will see you next week with your technique class on Monday for parts 4, 5, and 6. We will enhance the hip action and the rib action as well. Again, my name is Richard Gibney with Ballroom Journey, part of the programming at the Middletown Arts Center in Middletown, New Jersey. Have fun with this, practice, good luck.